Whenever you talk about a licensed game on the Nintendo Entertainment System, it's hard not to mention LJN. The toy company turned video game publisher was responsible for some of the worst games on the system, including Back to the Future, Karate Kid, and Nightmare on Elm Street. But one publisher of licensed games on the NES that never gets enough credit is Sunsoft. They made some great games that didn't completely ignore the source material, like Batman and Gremlins 2: The New Batch. Gremlins 2 is a top-down platform game where you control Gizmo as he fights his way through Amazon.com's headquarters to reach the Gremlin Control Center and face off against the evil Spider Gremlin. Surprisingly, this is pretty close to the plot of the movie. Well, sort of, inasmuch as the gremlins that Gizmo spawns take over a skyscraper. And also, like the movie, the game features bosses based on some of the new Gremlin personalities. For example, the Electric Gremlin and Spider Gremlin. Gizmo controls easily, moving in any of the 4 cardinal directions, as well as diagonally. He's initially armed with a supply of miniature tomatoes, but his weapon gets upgraded to things like paper clips and a matchstick bow and arrow as the game progresses. As you fight against a legion of bats, tomatoes, and, well, gremlins, you'll collect orbs which can be used as currency in the item shops you'll encounter in each level. The shop carries various health items, a weapon power-up, an extra life, and the red balloon, which allows you to float for a short distance after falling into a pit. While all of these items are helpful to varying degrees, a strategic use of the balloon can help you zip past some of the game's harder obstacles. Which brings me to my next point. Gremlins 2 is hard. While the first 2 levels are moderately difficult, the game ramps up in difficulty fairly quick, throwing enemy sprites at you from several directions at once. While there are only 5 levels total, mastering Gremlins 2 will take a few careful, methodical playthroughs until each level is memorized. At times, the game can feel unfair, but once you know the layout, many of the worst parts of each stage can be bypassed with a well-timed jump or 2. Being said, it can still be extremely frustrating to get to the end of the stage, only to have a gremlin appear out of nowhere and send you back to the beginning. Luckily, the game has infinite continues. If you haven't noticed, Gremlins 2 has an excellent soundtrack like most other Sunsoft NES titles, provided by Naoki Kodaka, who is famous for using the NES sound chip in creative ways. Take a listen. All in all, while Gremlins 2 is short, challenging, and occasionally frustrating, it's still a really fun game to play if you take the time to learn the stages. And learning each stage is made infinitely more enjoyable by the excellent soundtrack. As far as fun platform games with a top-down perspective, Gremlins 2 is pretty unique in that respect. It's one of the only ones I can think of that would be on that list. Maybe the few levels in Blaster Master or Super C, but those are not really the same. If you can think of any other ones, let me know in the comments. Gremlins 2 for the Nintendo Entertainment System is a pretty good game, and I recommend picking up a copy of it if you can find it. It's still somewhat under the radar for a lot of collectors, so you can pick up a loose card for about $10 to $15, just pretty cheap for NES. And while it's a little on the short side, if you enjoy a challenge, I think you'd have some fun with it. Well, that's it for this episode of Retro Buyer's Guide. As always, thanks for watching. Please tell your friends and subscribe, and I look forward to coming back next week with a new video. Until then, happy collecting.